Police investigate a criminal damage case on the East Rail Line near Taiwan Station. China Airlines cancel more flights as a pilot strike continues. And in the US, Elizabeth Warren officially launches her presidential bid.
Hello and a very good evening. Services on the East Rail Line were temporarily disrupted this morning after an overhead power cable in Taipo was damaged. It's suspected that some people had thrown a metal handrail down from a footbridge, hitting the cable. As Caleb Long reports, police have classified the case as criminal damage.
An unusual object that brought train services on a section of the East Rail Line to a halt this morning. This 17-meter-long metal handrail is believed to have struck the overhead power cable near Taiwan Station at around 5 a.m. That disrupted the power supply, affecting train services for around an hour. Trains stopped running between Taipo Market and Fanling stations. The MTR Corporation alerted the police at around 7 a.m. and detectives arrived at the scene to carry out investigations. Their work includes gathering fingerprints on the metal rod. There are 2 surveillance cameras nearby, but sources say the system doesn't support the recording of footage. The police later sawed up the metal handrail into pieces and took them away. An initial investigation suggested some people deliberately ripped the metal rod out of its mounting and threw it down from a footbridge on Taiwan Service Road East near Kowloon Hang. Caleb Long, TVB News.
China Airlines cancelled more flights today as hundreds of pilots continued their industrial action. As Kena Chiu reports, working hours and fatigue are 2 of the issues being discussed between the company and the pilots' union.
There appears to be no end in sight to the strike by China Airlines pilots. More than 500 pilots, or at least 40% of the workforce, have failed to report for duty. Li Xinyan, who leads the pilots' union in Taoyuan, stressed the importance of unity among members in their fight for better labor rights. The union says it took action because China Airlines refused to address fatigue among pilots. The airline and the union negotiated yesterday on the issue and how working hours are defined. It wants for preparation time instead of just flight time to be counted as working hours. Despite 6 hours of negotiations, a breakthrough has yet to be reached. According to the union, it is unknown when the next round of talks will take place. For now, China Airlines will carry on with rearranging flights by coordinating with other airlines and deploying larger planes. According to Taiwan's Ministry of Transportation and Communications, China Airlines will be compensating those customers affected by reimbursing transport and accommodation expenses. In Hong Kong, all standby seats were filled up this morning. The strike may cause inconvenience to some, but this lady is just relieved that flights are delayed rather than cancelled. She is pleased how China Airlines is handling the situation. Hong Kong Airlines has helped out by adding flights. Kena Chiu, TVB News.
A lucky escape for a Hong Kong tour group on the mainland as members got off their coach before it caught fire this afternoon. Jason Wong, the Travel Industry Council's chairman, confirmed the news. He said the vehicle was found to be faulty on its way to Shenzhen and later went up in flames. It was carrying 42 people with Kuan Kin tours. They were at the end of a 3-day trip to Chaoshan in the east of Guangdong province. No one was injured in the incident.
US media reports say Beijing and Washington could extend the March 1st deadline of their trade truce if President Donald Trump thinks enough progress is being made in upcoming trade talks later this week. But state media warned the US to stop harboring the fantasy that Beijing would give up its push for technological development. The Dow Jones logged its first three-day losing streak since December on Friday on dampened hopes that China and the US could reach a trade deal before their 90-day truce expires on March 1st. That's after US President Donald Trump said the day before that he did not plan to meet with President Xi Jinping before the deadline when he will be in Asia to see North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Trump had said that no deal would be finalized until he and Xi shake hands on it. But this may not be the end of the road yet. CNBC cited a senior White House official as saying that Trump and Xi may talk on the phone, even though they won't meet in person before the end of the month. The official added that the deadline could be extended following their phone conversation, especially if Trump thinks the trade talks are on the right track. Washington has also maintained that Trump is optimistic about a potential trade deal. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported both sides are so far apart that they have not even drafted anything specifying what they agree and disagree on. On Thursday and Friday, Vice Premier Liu He will host U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and the rest of Washington's delegation in Beijing for the latest round of their ongoing trade talks. Washington is expected to continue to push Beijing to end what the U.S. views as unfair trade practices, including theft of intellectual property and forced technology transfers. However, analysts say China is unlikely to respond to U.S. demands for structural reforms, which many see as Washington's attempt to stop Beijing from achieving global technological dominance. Beijing seemed to confirm that view when the state-owned Global Times newspaper urged Washington to stop harboring the fantasy that China will give up its right to develop technology. But until any extension is announced, the truce deadline of March 1st remains in force. If both sides fail to come up with a resolution, the American tariff rate on $200 billion worth of Chinese imports will jump from 10 to 25%. The Thai political party that nominated a princess as its candidate for prime minister could be banned from the March general election. An activist said today he would file a petition seeking its disqualification. This after Princess Ubonrat Rajakanya's announcement that she'll run in the election drew a swift rebuke from King Vajiralongkorn, her younger brother. Yesterday, one day after the Thai king called his sister's nomination inappropriate and unconstitutional, the Thai Raksa Chart Party issued a statement. It said the party loyally accepted the king's order and expressed deep gratitude to Princess Ubonrat for her kindness towards the party. Ubonrat thanked people for their support, but did not directly mention the king's statement. Thailand's Election Commission will meet tomorrow to consider her candidacy. The March 24th election will be the country's first since a military coup in 2014. It toppled the government of Thaksin Shinawatra and put in place a military junta determined to eradicate his influence on the country's political system. Up until the coup, Thaksin's allies have won every national election since 2001. A mass murderer in Canada has been given a life sentence with no eligibility for parole for 40 years in connection with a shooting spree at a mosque in 2017. The judge called Alexandre Bissonnet's actions premeditated, cold-blooded, and a visceral hate of Muslims. In January 2017, the 29-year-old walked into an Islamic cultural center in Quebec City and began shooting during evening prayers. 6 men were killed in the attack. Bissonnet was arrested that night after he called the police to say he wanted to cooperate. Last year, he pleaded guilty to 6 counts of first-degree murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. Prosecutors asked for 6 consecutive life sentences or 150 years in prison without eligibility for parole.
U.S. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren officially announced her bid for the White House on Saturday. She delivered a populist platform calling for more opportunities for the majority and slamming the rich for having too little accountability.
First, we need to change the rules to clean up Washington, end the corruption. Now, we all know the Trump administration is the most corrupt in living memory. But even after Trump is gone, it won't do just to do a better job of running a broken system. We need to take power in Washington away from the wealthy and well-connected and put it back in the hands of the people where it belongs. This is the fight of our lives, the fight to build an America where dreams are possible, an America that works for everyone. And that is why I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
Warren's campaign launch took place at a mill site in her home state of Massachusetts, where largely immigrant factory workers went on strike about 100 years ago. Warren's backers, including Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey and Representative Joe Kennedy III, are hoping to distinguish her in a crowded Democratic field and helping her move past the controversy surrounding her past claims to Native American heritage. She was the first high-profile Democrat to signal interest in running for the White House after forming an exploratory committee on New Year's Eve. And still ahead tonight, the 13th weekend of Yellow Vest protests in France. The government's relocation destinations for some stray cows under fire from volunteers. And a messy situation after a water pipe burst in Saiwan-ho.
I would not want to live in Disneyland.
Moving all the way from Canada to the edge of the Sahara Desert, Mary Ann believes she has chosen a simpler way of life.
I was so fed up with people in suits. That was it. I was coming out here to hide.
Monday, Where the Wild Men Are, with Ben Fogle. Season 5 at 9:35 on Pearl. Living in the Himalayan forests are sacred monkeys and flamboyant birds. But most elusive are the red pandas. Tag along to see the world through Tashi's eyes. Tuesday, Red Panda, world's cutest animal, at 8:30 on Pearl.
Let's talk about language.
Can we speak to animals?
What are animals saying?
Humpback whales have cultural transmission. Even the simplest of creatures seem to have a lot to say.
Wednesday, Nova Wonders, at 9:35 on Pearl.
卓遠 Accolade 香港商標註冊2500蚊，中國商標2000蚊，美國商標6500蚊，歐盟商標11500蚊，提供全球商標註冊服務，免費檢索，請電35212999。
I've been standing here for several years now, braving the wind and rain and sun, but nobody cares. Hey, I can't support your weight. You can't just patch me up with sticking plaster. Don't try to force me open when I'm stuck. Oh no, I'm falling! Ask a qualified contractor to inspect your windows and replace if necessary. And make sure you use aluminium windows properly.
Do you think you'd look like that if you didn't eat oats?
Are they really good for you? Or do people just think that?
You could make the connection that eating brain would be good for your brain.
This spice is a super spice.
Thursday, Superfoods, The Real Story, Season 3, at 8 on Pearl. Whether you like it sweet or savory, crispy or gooey, let's find out how your favorite snacks are made.
When I bite into one of our potato chips, it just makes me feel like it's time to party.
The faster we freeze the ice cream and the smoother the texture.
Friday, Unwrapped 2.0, Season 2, at 8:25 on Pearl.
Welcome back to TVB News. For the 13th weekend in a row, Yellow Vest demonstrations were held across France. The rallies were smaller than previous protests, but the anger against President Emmanuel Macron's policies remain. Peter Gavales has details.
Thousands of French demonstrators marched in the capital of Paris. Fires were set and car windows were smashed. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowds. One demonstrator had his hand severely injured. 4 of his fingers were severed when he tried to pick up a so-called sting ball grenade used by police. Leaders of the Yellow Vest movement denounced the police for injuring protesters. The movement has sparked anger and now has also inspired art.
Moi, je trouve qu'elle est réussie.
This graffiti artist in Paris said people were motivated to paint realistic scenes of the protests. The rally started as an outcry against a fuel tax hike. That quickly spiraled into a broader movement against inequality. President Emmanuel Macron has tried to quell the anger by introducing a national debate. This demonstrator says the debate won't achieve anything because the main concerns of the public are not taken into account. The outbursts have also been prominent in the city of Nantes, where protesters and police clashed. This person says that people are being repressed and they must denounce the downward spiral of the government. The movement also tried to cross the border into Italy. Protesters met up with Italian supporters who shared their grievances. This person says what is happening is a social movement and people are tired of scraping by while billionaires live comfortably. The rally in the border town of Menton comes amid a diplomatic spat between France and Italy. France recalled its ambassador in Rome on Thursday after what Paris described as baseless and repeated attacks from Italy's political leaders and urged Italy to return to a more friendly stance. Peter Coveos, TVB News.
Britain's Prince Philip will no longer be in the driver's seat as the 97-year-old has voluntarily surrendered his driving licence. According to Buckingham Palace, the Duke of Edinburgh came to the decision after careful consideration. Last month he was involved in a car accident and escaped unhurt near the royal family's Sandringham estate in eastern England. 2 women in the other car were injured, though not seriously, and a 9-month-old baby boy was unhurt. Philip apologised for the accident and suggested low sunlight affected his vision. Prosecutors said they would take the latest development into account as they decide whether to press charges against the husband of Queen Elizabeth II. There is no upper age limit for drivers in Britain, although anyone over 70 is required to renew their licence every 3 years.
And back locally, local authorities attributed a rise in complaints about wild boars to people feeding them in urban areas. It's not just the animal's size that's causing concerns, but also reports of people injured by them in recent years.
It's quite interesting, but it's uncommon.
While footage of cows that wandered into a supermarket amused the Director of Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation, he said there's serious work to do on stray cows.
We work with the NGOs in this district. Either they will send people to herd the cattle back to the countryside or ask us to carry out an operation to catch them.
His department faces a bigger problem, though. Wild boars in urban areas, some weighing up to 150 kilograms and 1.6 meters in length. In 2011, there were roughly 250 complaints on the animals. The number shot up to 740 last year. Is Hong Kong developing too rapidly and driving the wild animals away from their natural habitat?
I don't see there is a direct relationship between the wild boar issues and what you call the city planning issues. We have a huge area of country park. It comprises about 40% of our land area in Hong Kong. There should be enough space and habitat for our wild animal.
So what's exacerbating the problem?
Many people, they think that these wild boar, they don't have enough food in the countryside. So they would think that, it's humane to feed them. As a matter of fact, it's not the case.
Under the Wild Animals Protection Ordinance, feeding wild animals in prohibited zones like Lion Rock and Tai Mo Shan country parks may lead to prosecutions and fines of up to $10,000. Authorities don't intend to expand the ordinance to cover other areas, so people who feed wild pigs outside country parks can only be prosecuted for littering. This requires law enforcement by Food and Environmental Hygiene Department officers, something Leung Sil-fai said will be stepped up after studying feeding black spots.
There are over 1,000 stray cows in Hong Kong. Under a relocation program, the government earlier moved some of the animals to a country park in Sai Kung. But its choice for the relocation destination has come under fire from volunteers who helped herd the cattle. Pinky Wong finds out why.
These cows may look like they're at where they belong, but sometimes they wander into Sai Kung town to look for food. Ms. Wang said sometimes stray cows rummage through garbage bins and end up eating food scraps or even plastic. That's why she volunteered to feed the cows by cutting some grass and leaving it on the ground near the animals. She also pointed to the government's animal relocation policy as one of the reasons why cows often go hungry. According to the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department, the city is home to some 1,100 stray cows. You'll find roughly 450 of them in Saigon and Ma'anshan, including 21 that were earlier relocated from Lantau Island to a country park in Saigon. That's part of the official capture, sterilization, and relocation program implemented in 2011 to control the cattle population. Another relocation destination is the High Island Reservoir in Saigon. The soil there lacks organic matter to support plant growth. It is a kind of animal abuse relocating them to a place without much grassland, said Ho Pui Han, a member of the Association for the Ecological and Cultural Conservation of Aqualaria sinensis. Officials responded that the cows were not relocated to confined areas. The animals can freely wander and look for food, so the lack of grassland at the relocation destination is not a problem. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
A water pipe burst in Saiwan-ho at around 4 this morning. Nearby businesses were affected even hours later. Staff of restaurants and stores were busy cleaning up the place several hours after an 18-inch water main burst underneath Saiwan-ho Street. Part of the road caved in and power cables and water pipes were exposed. Water Supplies Department staff shut off the water supply to facilitate emergency repair work, and a section of Saiwan-ho Street was closed off to traffic. Jeff, over to you for sports.
Thanks, Omi. 13-time champion jockey Douglas White has called it a day in the saddle. His last race was this afternoon in Sha Tin as he handed over the reins to a new generation of riders.
We've had our rivals and we've had our competition, but we've pushed each other and you've probably pushed me more than needed. You kept me going and you kept me on my toes. And Zach, Joe, it's a pleasure watching you guys now, and you're doing the Jockey Club a fantastic show.
The 47-year-old South African hopes to follow in the footsteps of former star jockey turned successful trainer Tony Cruz. White won more than 1,800 races in over 23 seasons in Hong Kong, despite failing to add to the total today. His record haul included 3 Hong Kong Derby victories and a trio of QE2 Cups. The total prize money for his rides topped $1.5 billion. Hong Kong fencer Vivian Kong picked up her second World Cup title. The 25-year-old beat South Korea's Lee He in the women's épée final in Barcelona. Last month in Cuba, Kong became the first fencer from Hong Kong to lift a series event trophy. She's also closing in on the #1 ranking in the world. The lefty is currently ranked second. To cricket, and England was 231 for 4 at stumps on the first day of the third test against West Indies. In St. Lucia, Ben Stokes and Jos Buttler combined for England's first century partnership of the series. Buttler was unbeaten on 67 and Stokes on 62. They were 107 for 4 and put on 124. Captain Joe Root was dismissed for just 15. The Windies have already clinched the 3-test series after resounding wins in Barbados and Antigua. To the NBA, and the Oklahoma City Thunder defeated the Houston Rockets in a battle of 2 high-powered offenses. James Harden scored 42 to lead the Rockets. However, Paul George outdid the Beard with 45 as OKC came back from 26 points down to win. He also added 11 rebounds. The final score was 117 to 112. Russell Westbrook tied the NBA record with his 9th straight triple-double. Westbrook had 21 points, 12 rebounds and 11 dimes on the night. And in golf, England's Paul Casey will take a 3-shot lead into the final round of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am in California. Casey fired a 5-under-67 on Saturday and leads Phil Mickelson, who posted a 70. He stands at 12 under par overall. Lefty is a four-time winner at Pebble Beach on the Monterey Peninsula. The 48-year-old made the cut for the 500th time on the PGA Tour. Defending champion Ted Potter Jr. failed to qualify for the final round.